Hello, I'm back. I'm so happy. I even got dressed up for you guys. Look at this. I got the tie and everything. I am going to be talking about modern eugenics. To be quite honest, last week's video was just a video just to give this video actual context and background. Because to be honest, eugenics, contemporary eugenics from the beginning of eugenics, I guess you could say, up until World War II, does not necessarily apply to modern morality anymore. No one really thinks it's okay to go around and just start killing an entire group of people. However, what if instead of killing an entire group of people, we just make sure that they cease to exist in the first place? And that is modern eugenics. So I decided to get dressed up so I could look really good for you guys, but also to give this topic the respect it deserves. Like, honestly, I even put on shoes. Like, look at this. I put on some nice pair of shoes just for this occasion. All right, so like I said before, World War II eugenics is very different from modern eugenics. So what is modern eugenics, you might ask? Well, it's consumer eugenics. Essentially, what kind of babies do you want to have? Because let's be honest, we as a society kind of already think of what is an acceptable baby to have, essentially speaking. Everybody wants a baby who's not only just handsome or beautiful or pretty, whatever adjective you want to put for an attractive child. I'm not talking about attractiveness like pedophilia attractiveness. I'm talking about just no one wants an ugly baby, okay? Like, let's just be honest. Nobody wants an ugly baby. But at the same time, nobody wants a baby who is diseased. No one wants a baby who might not be as mentally capable as the child next to them, if you know what I mean. They're kind of handicapped in that realm. No one really wants a child like that. And these are attributes that society themselves have come together and kind of say, like, this is what we want in a child. They got all of those attributes and now they turned it into consumer eugenics. People will pay to have the sperm or the egg of somebody who is attractive, healthy, and intelligent. And this isn't a new topic at all. Not at all. There was this guy who wrote a book called The Future of Man. His name was Robert Graham, and he essentially argued in that book that society was the reason why people are getting dumber and dumber. Why? Because we let the weak survive. We let the dumb survive instead of letting them die off like how evolution is supposed to work. But instead, we're empathetic and we want to make sure they survive. We have hospitals to make sure that the sick don't die off. We have school for special needs children to make sure that they don't fall behind or not as far behind. These are just a few examples. So Robert Graham thought that, you know what, we need, just like Sir Francis Galton, he believed that we need to come together as a society and push people to basically expedite the evolutionary process. And the way he did that was he started the sperm bank, and the sperm bank was only going to have Nobel Prize winner sperm in it. So if you wanted a very smart and successful child, I guess you could say, why don't you get the sperm from a very smart and successful person? Well, the thing is with Nobel Prize winners, they're very old and they're very white. So there is this like racist kind of thing into it. And also, if they're old, who wants the sperm from an old guy? Like, let's just be honest. Like, nobody wants the sperm from an old guy. But here's the thing. Robert Graham went and reached out towards all these Nobel Prize winners. Was like, hey, bro, give me your sperm so we can have smart babies with people around the world. And out of all the people he reached out to, only one person reached back. Only one person was willing to donate. So Robert Graham decided, you know what, I have to put my expectations a little bit lower. So instead of, I guess, having Nobel Prize winners, I'll just have very smart scientists instead. And a lot of very smart scientists were willing to donate their sperm for this cause. And actually, a lot of babies were the product of this very intelligent sperm bank, I guess you could say. One of them being Doran Blake. This guy had 180 IQ. Just to put that in perspective, Albert Einstein, an amazing physicist, was an IQ at 160. This kid, 180. 180. That's absolutely insane. I can't even freaking wrap my head around it. And because of it, people had really high expectations for this kid. They thought that he was going to go out and cure cancer or figure out how to make people stop aging or just something spectacular in the science field. And you know what he did? He actually grew up and he didn't really do anything spectacular. In fact, he lived a very average life. This tormented Doran. Because think about it. If you're raised your entire life and people tell you you're going to do amazing things, we have such high hopes for you, you're going to have such a bright future, and you live a spectacularly average life, well, how are you going to feel? You're going to feel like you let a lot of people down. And that's probably how he felt, actually. There was an interview with him, and he basically said that no child should have to grow up with such pressure on them. And he finished his interview by saying, you cannot breed good people. Almost as if he was disgusted by the fact that people were trying to use science to breed spectacular people. Well, sperm banks are not anything new. People are using sperm banks all the time. In fact, just go online and you'll find a website called Cyros International or Cryros International, and you'll see that this is a very common thing. In fact, let's go to it right now. So in Cryros International, you'll see that there are 317 donors, both men and women, donating their eggs and sperm for you to have, as long as you can afford it, right? And we're going to look at the top guy, the top donor, just the top of the list, just save us some time. His name, he goes by Abner. He's not anonymous at all. He's Caucasian and he's American. He has brown hair, brown eyes. He is 5'11", weighs 180 pounds. And his education background is that he has a bachelor's in sociology. But the thing is, there's a lot more to Abner. For example, let's read the staff impression. Donor Abner is a sweet, handsome guy with musical talent that resembles the actor Ryan Gosling. He is an accomplished musician and is very passionate about his work. He plays multiple instruments, but his favorite is the guitar for his acoustic music. He loves to perform and has produced several musical albums. He is very thorough and inquisitive, which means curious, because I looked it up because I didn't know what the fuck that meant. He is so happy and content in life, and he takes every opportunity to appreciate every moment he has been given. He leads a healthy lifestyle and is a casual dresser. He enjoys intelligent conversations and gives great insight. Wow, he seems like a really sweet guy. But the thing is, you can even go even further. It's so insane. So not only do you know his height, weight, all that stuff, you can go to his extended profile, which honestly has some mixed feeling. I have mixed feelings about it because it says that he was, he's not 180 pounds. He's 180 centimeters, I'm assuming. He's 147 pounds. So there we go. So he's 147 pounds. He has an athletic build. His shoe size is 10.5, ladies. And he has a medium clothing size. So his shirts that he wears are medium. He has fair skin tone. He has an oval facial shape. He has medium lips. I don't know what the fuck that means. Medium lips. He has brown eyes, brown eyebrows, brown beard, brown hair, straight. It's fine and straight. And all that's just kind of like the superficial attributes of this Ryan Gosling looking person, right? But it also talks about his academics. Yes, we know that he's a sociology major. He graduated with a bachelor's, and that we know that he's musically talented. But it also goes a little bit further and talks about how he is very involved in the health of the planet. He is very into the environmental issues of today. In fact, he's joined a cleanup group in his community because he wants to take part in it. He speaks English and Spanish, and for some reason they thought it was important to point out that he has not served in the military. I don't know, part of his educational background. But it goes even further. Do you want to know his strengths, his weaknesses? There you go. Do you want to know his maternal status? If he has any children, what are his favorite sports? What is his religion? How many hours of sleep he gets every night? Does he eat healthy? Does he smoke? Does he drink? We all need to know this in question, right? The most important question of them all. Does he ride a bicycle? To which he says often, which, oof. That really put a lot of pressure off of me because I was so freaking worried if he rides a bicycle. But I know he rides a bicycle, so we're good. We're good. He's a good guy. He's not a sociopath or a psychopath. Oof. He's a great guy. He doesn't drink alcohol like I said before. He's been to the Bahamas. He can describe his best holiday. He can talk about what he loves most about the United States. What kind of other stuff does he do? He swims and skis. What are his goals in life, etc., etc., etc. You can know about his favorite color or favorite animal even, which all of it seems pretty cool, right? Kind of too much. In my opinion, I think most of these questions are just so that the person, the consumer themselves, can feel connected with Abner. So it doesn't feel like they're getting sperm from a total stranger. It feels like they kind of get to know him a little bit, like if they actually did know him. It makes it more of a personal experience. But let's get even more personal. Not only do you need to know about Abner, about who he is superficially, you also get to know about his brother, his father, his mother, and all 4 of his grandparents. And yes, all 4 of his grandparents are still alive, according to this pedigree, this very in-depth pedigree that honestly kind of makes me feel a little weird to go through. Like, I feel like I'm going through someone's very private life. Like, it kind of makes me uncomfortable. But you know what? Let's not stop there. Do you want to know about his emotional intelligence? Well, guess what? He's actually above average when it comes to emotional intelligence. In fact, he is off the charts on almost every single aspect about someone's personality graph. However, there's one thing he very lacks, and it's being assertive. So he's very insightful. He's very smart. He's very in tune with himself, but he's also kind of a beta male. So if you're into that, Abner's for you. So yeah, that's Abner. And the thing is, like, this is not a new topic at all. In fact, anybody could just buy this guy's sperm or go and buy a woman's eggs. It's not a new concept at all. In fact, if you can afford it and pay for it, why wouldn't you? Because before, people just had to rely on proximity. Whatever was around them. It's like, oh, well, he's not the greatest, but you know what? He's kind of nice. He's kind of funny, and he's the only thing that's around. So I guess I'll have children with him. That kind of takes that away. Now you can actually have like almost like a supermarket. You just walk in, and there's just amazing fruits everywhere. But instead of fruits, it's guys. And you're like, wow, this guy's amazing. This guy's amazing. I want this guy's kid. Let's have it. But there's a problem with this, though. The thing is, these guys and women are not going to have genetic diseases. Why? Because no one wants to buy a genetically diseased child. Like, let's just be honest, no one wants to do that, because remember, society thinks it's okay to discriminate somebody based on their intelligence and their looks, and that's nothing that we can't really fight against. That it's just human nature in a sense. So it makes sense why people are this way. Does it suck that that's the way life is? Yeah, it does, but what you gonna do about it? Anyways, again, like I said before, no one really wants to buy a genetically diseased child, so these people are going to be very clean when it comes to genetic disease. They're not going to have that in their family tree. However, you, as the person who is buying the sperm or egg, you might still have genetic diseases. So that means that no matter what, when you have a kid, that kid is probably still going to have that genetic disease. We're talking about diseases like Huntington's. We're talking about diseases like cystic fibrosis. We're talking about very important diseases like color blindness, people. Like, my camera is falling. Okay. Like, these are very important things that we need that need to be addressed. So what do we do? How do we handle that? Well, lucky for you, we have a very cheap and very accurate method, also known as CRISPR-Cas9. If you have that disease, if you are susceptible to having cancer or addictive behaviors or anxiety, depression, or you were freaking cursed with dark eyes when you wanted blue eyes, well, guess what? We can edit those genes for you. We can delete them. We can replace them. We can make it so that certain attributes that you have, we can basically make it so that's more apparent in your genetic code to guarantee that you will have that attribute for sure. Because remember, you don't just have one height gene or one happy gene or one smart gene. Like, of course, I'm dumbing it down, but you get what I'm saying. It's actually multiple genes that work together. And the more of these genes that you have working together, the higher the likelihood is that you're going to have that attribute. So they can make it so that you can make those attributes more apparent in your genetic code to strengthen that likelihood that you will have whatever attribute you want. Almost like guaranteeing that you're going to have it. Like, if you want to roll a 6 on a roll of die, well, it would help if all 6 sides have 6s on them. Like, you know, it's going to help. So with CRISPR-Cas9 and being able to edit these genes, you kind of take that fear away. Your child most likely is going to not have these diseases. In fact, with genetic editing, you can actually cure things like HIV, which actually happened. There was this Chinese scientist named He Zhenghuai who actually, and sorry if I mispronounced that, I tried my best, but he actually edited the genes of twins. And the reason why he did it was because the father of these twins had HIV, and he was worried he was going to pass the HIV down, which honestly, coming from the father, it's very rare that that actually happens. It's like guaranteed if the mother has HIV, but if the father has HIV, it's very rare that it's passed down to the children. But nonetheless, he was worried, just like any father, because he wanted his children to have happy and not HIV riddled lives. He wanted them to be able to live a healthy life. And because of it, he asked He to basically use the technology of today to edit their genes to make sure that they wouldn't have HIV. And that's what he did. He actually did it. So essentially what happens is in your genetic code, there's a certain gene that honestly we don't need. However, HIV needs it to bind to it in order for it to do its little dirty work and make your life a living hell. So what did He do? He fucking deleted it. He's like, I don't need you. Boom, gone. And guess what? Those kids are now HIV resistant. But here's the thing. People with that mutation in their genetic code, yeah, they're HIV resistant, but they also happen to live shorter lifespans. Why? Because it kind of makes their immune system overall kind of weak. So it's like giving them a very mild version of HIV anyways. So they tend to die at early deaths from infections. So yeah, they won't have HIV, but they still might live a life that might be kind of sickly. Anyways, more on that later. Another thing that genetic modification can do is, again, like I said, completely delete and erase genetic diseases entirely. We already spoke about this. And the third thing that it can do is, well, the topic of today, designer babies. Should we do it? So let's get to like the very basic part of designer babies. Designer babies essentially are just genetically modified. So why would we want to, as a human person, want to genetically modify our child? It's not necessarily bad for you as a parent to want to make sure that your child will not have these terrible diseases, like I said before, like Huntington's disease, cystic fibrosis, and the oh so terrible color blindness. So we kind of use it as like any other medication that we have, just simply cure them of those diseases. And why would we want to do that? Well, it's because we want to raise the quality of someone's life. And how do we raise the quality of someone's life? Well, we make sure that they have the ability to develop a sense of what is important to them and how that value came to be in the first place. And also, what extent can that value be accomplished or achieved or developed? And thirdly, there has to be a balance between pleasure and pain. You can't just have a life that's 99% pain and 1% pleasure. People would argue that that is a low quality of life, for sure. And actually, this is probably the main argument for abortion, because we don't want to have a low quality of life. But with genetic modification, you can be able to take away diseases that would lower this quality of life, and you can also make it so that the person's perception of their life isn't so bad. You can make it so that they're less susceptible to depression and anxiety, for example, and they would have probably a better outlook of their and perspective of their own life. So then honestly, with genetic modification, it kind of destroys the abortion argument. Honestly, in my opinion, genetic modification is the only argument that I am aware of that actually has a very strong philosophical weight behind the argument for pro-life. And that's just me being honest. Because it kind of takes away abortion as a tool to make sure that people are having a high quality of life. Because you can now have a high quality of life through genetic modification without having anyone die. So this sounds amazing. You can cure HIV, you can cure cancer, you can cure basically anything and almost everything that has to do with your genetics, and at the same time you can raise someone's quality of life. Why are we not doing these genetic modifications now? It's cheap, like I said before, and it's very accurate. Why are we not doing it now, Joseph? Well, the thing is, there's ethical issues that need to be raised from this. So first and foremost, that the first thing that you're probably thinking right now is, where do we draw the line between therapy and enhancement? Because let's think about it. If someone has muscular dystrophy, their life is going to have most likely a lower quality of life than the average person, because they're going to be very limited in movement and they're going to be very reliant on somebody else. They're not going to be able to have the autonomy or freedom that the average person will be able to enjoy. And you can genetically modify them so that their muscles do not deteriorate. But here's the thing. If you're going to just make sure that their muscles don't deteriorate, why not also give them a boost that their muscle builds faster than the average person? And also, how do you know is not just a boost? How do you not know that? What if you thought the whole time you were just curing a disease? You didn't know you were giving them a boost. But now that you've given them a boost, they have an edge over the average person. And now that they have an edge over the average person, because now they can be faster, smarter, stronger, they'll be able to take over jobs that are higher paying, something that's more demanding. Think about CEOs, for example. They work 80 hours a week, and they tend to be very intelligent and also very good at risk taking. They have that ability inside of them, that drive that makes them want to take risks. What if you can genetically modify that someone has a higher endurance to be able to last those 80-hour work weeks, and also have a higher intelligence to be able to make the right moves, and also give them the courage, give them the ability to have more chemicals in their body that drives them to higher the probability that they'll be risk takers? Hell, that means you can genetically modify someone to be the next Elon Musk. And if you could do that for your child, why wouldn't you? But hold on to that. Let's just put a pin in that. Because the thing is, here's one reason why you can't do it. What are the trade-offs? Like we said before, the scientist who genetically modified the twins. By the way, the twins are named, well, they're not their real names. They're kind of like their alias names. They're named Lulu and Nana, by the way. The fact that when he genetically modified them, he took a gene out that honestly is probably going to give them a lower lifespan than the average human. But we luckily knew the side effect of doing what he did. But the thing is, if we're going to make this into a metaphor, let's talk about the alphabet or language in general. Because honestly, to understand genetics is kind of to understand a totally new language, kind of like coding. Coding in it of itself is a language, just like how German and French and Spanish exist. They're all different languages. Right now, we're barely learning the letters. In fact, we're kind of putting letters together and learning sounds. But in order to be able to genetically modify a person and to understand all of the side effects and be able to tell somebody, hey, well, you're going to genetically modify your child, but just to let you know, these are the side effects. Are you willing to take the risk? Yes or no? The ability for somebody to be able to do that, we need to have the ability to be able to write a novel. But again, like I said, right now in these stages, we're simply learning the letters or putting the letters together and learning the sounds. We are nowhere near the ability to write that novel just yet. But the thing is, given enough time and enough money for research, we'll be able to very well write that novel. So even though this is a very huge ethical issue, that we do not understand the trade-offs, it's a very solvable issue. It's just going to take time and money. So we're going to move on from that one. So let's bring back what I talked about earlier about abortion, and let's talk about culture. So this may shock some of you. I know for a fact the first time I heard it, I was absolutely shocked. Deaf parents want deaf children. I'm gonna say that one more time. Deaf parents want deaf children. You might think, why? Why would they want that? Well, the thing is, people who are deaf actually have a culture because they're deaf. It's a lifestyle. And the thing is, they want to connect with their children the same way that my parents connected with me, or you're very much how your parents connected with you. They want to be able to do that. And they wouldn't really be able to, honestly, if their child wasn't deaf like them. They might be able to do it a little bit, or at least quite adequately, but they won't be able to connect with them fully, completely. Because when you're deaf and you learn sign language, it's the same way as how I just learn English. There's no difference at all. So and this is the funny thing is, it's not very rare for a deaf couple to go into the gynecologist, take a test, find out that their child, the fetus that's inside the mother's womb, can hear, that fetus has the ability to listen. They abort it. They would abort that fetus. It was a very healthy fetus that very much well could have lived a life of high quality, but they made sure that it ceased to exist because it could hear, it could listen, it had that ability, its ears could work. So now with genetic modification, you could just take that gene off, or maybe alter it so that the child will be deaf. That would save lives, essentially. And also, parents would be able to connect with their children. But here's the thing that I kind of want to raise from that issue, though. What if parents, because let's be honest, here, at least here in the United States, we try our best to accommodate for those who are disabled or that we consider disabled. Because keep in mind, people who are deaf or blind, they don't really consider their life a life one that is of disability. They consider it a little bit different. It's just a different lifestyle. The same way that I myself, I'm not vegan, but let's pretend that I was. And my friends are definitely not vegan. The first thing I know for a fact, if I told them, hey, I'm vegan, the first thing they're going to tell me is, Joseph, you're going to live life without cheese? You're going to live life without meat? You're crazy. These are very delicious foods. There's so many delicious foods you'll never be able to enjoy again. And if I was very, very, very devoted to my veganism, I would just laugh it off. I'd be like, so what? It doesn't affect me. I can still live a life full of quality and purpose and meaning and be happy. I don't need those things. And it's the same thing for them too. They don't see their blindness or their deafness as a disability. They just simply live life normally. But with that being said, would it really be that out of the ordinary if a parent gave their child a disability on purpose so that they can have an edge in life? Because here's the thing. Here in the United States, at least, the government will give parents money if their child is blind or deaf. And actually, there's special scholarships just for these children. Would it really be that hard to imagine a parent purposely giving their child a disability just so that not only will they gain an edge, that they will be given scholarship money so that they can be able to go to better schools, but also as parents be given slack as they will be able to get assistance from the government to take care of their child? Would that really be that hard to imagine a parent doing that? And just think about it, how does that sit with you? Would you be okay with that? If your best friend had a child and they genetically modified them to have a disability on purpose for financial reasons. Here's an ethical issue, but it's more sci-fi. So those of you who like sci-fi, I think would like this one. By genetically modifying a person, you're essentially changing their genetic code. And sometimes you genetically modify them to have specific attributes. You might need to borrow a few genes from other species. For example, lobsters and some jellyfish can live forever. And if we can definitely use genetic modification to make sure that we can either make the aging process a lot slower or just not happen at all. And perhaps the key to this is lobsters, or to be more exact, their genetic code. So if we got snippets of their genetic code, the part that makes them immortal, and put it in humans, and it worked, it made us immortal. At least not necessarily immortal that we cannot die, but at least we don't die from old age. And we did it. And let's just say that's just one attribute, but there's so many other attributes that we borrow from other animals to the point where we become an entirely different species. What I mean by that is those who are genetically modified and those who are not modified, they no longer can breed together because they're just so different, genetically speaking. And here's the thing, if you're genetically modifying somebody, they're going to be faster, stronger, and smarter than the unmodified. And if they can no longer breed together, they're definitely not going to see each other as equal. The modified are going to see the unmodified as lesser versions of themselves, while the unmodified are going to see the modified as monsters, disgusting lab rats, monstrosities, just the product of a mad scientist, essentially. And without a doubt, there's going to be animosity between the two groups. You're going to see those who hate the modified because the modified are taking all the good jobs because they're stronger, faster, smarter. They can be able to handle the higher workloads. They can be able to handle the high pressure situations. They'll be able to perform at a much higher and better rate than the unmodified. So of course they're going to take the better jobs, the higher paying jobs. So of course there's going to be animosity because those who are unmodified are going to be struggling to make ends meet because they're going to be the ones that are going to have to work at the jobs that nobody wants and that also don't pay very well to begin with. And those who are modified are going to be able to afford the luxury homes, the luxury cars. So there's going to be animosity from that. And because the unmodified are going to be hateful towards the modified of course are going to reflect it towards the unmodified. And there's going to be war. essentially, I'm just being honest. Like, it might not happen immediately, but eventually there's going to be fighting between the two. And who's going to win? Of course, the modified are going to win. They're faster, stronger, smarter. I keep repeating it, but it's true, or it's going to be true. And what happens after that? Well, the unmodified, in my opinion, are going to become oppressed, if not slaves. But Joseph, slavery is wrong, you might say. They won't do it. They're smarter. But the thing is, why would they think it's wrong? They're not slaving their own kind. We think it's wrong to slave our own kind, our own species. But remember, we're different species now. And then you might think, no, they still wouldn't do it. They still wouldn't do it. But keep in mind, what about your dog, your cat, your goldfish, your reptile, your bird, whatever you have? What about that? You literally have it in captivity for your own entertainment. Just because you're, whatever, lonely, sad, bored. Maybe you just love animals. So you have it in captivity. It can't live free. It's just there, either in its cage, or maybe they're in a big cage. Maybe you don't put them in a little cage, like a kennel or anything like that, but they can't leave the house. It's just a bigger cage. What about them? Are they not enslaved? Because I would argue otherwise. And also, going back to the modified being the only ones that are taking care of the good jobs, the higher paying jobs, who are the ones getting modified in the first place? Well, it's the rich. The rich are the ones who are going to be the ones getting modified. And why is that? Because, Joseph, CRISPR is cheap and effective. Why would only the rich have access to it? Well, keep in mind that the people who are running, the people who have access to be able to modify these genes in the first place are businesses. And what's the only purpose of a business? To make profit. And they're going to rise the prices as high as possible as long as people are willing to pay for it. That's just how any business works. People are willing to pay $200,000 for a car, a certain type of car. So they're going to keep the price at that high. And some people are only willing to pay $15,000 for a certain type of car, and they're going to keep it at that price. Same thing's going to happen with genetic modification. Some genetic modifications are going to be cheap, but some are going to be very expensive. And the ones that are going to be very expensive, I promise you, are the ones that are going to drive people to be more successful than others. And the only people that are going to be able to have access to that, again, are the rich, because they're the only ones that are going to be able to afford these genetic modifications. And why are they rich in the first place? Well, it's because they already have great jobs. So what's going on? The rich are staying rich, and the poor are going to stay poor. Isn't that what's happening now? No, not necessarily. In the United States, 700,000 people each year becoming millionaires. And it's not impossible for somebody from poverty to become a millionaire. We see it all the time, especially in the entertainment business. Some people, as long as you have that drive in you, that talent, that grit, you can do it. But it's going to be much harder when somebody is genetically modified to do what you want to do, but they're going to do it 10 to 100 times better than you. Because it's in their genes. What are you going to do? Well, you can't do anything about it. So does that mean the poor are always going to stay poor? Well, no, not necessarily. There's going to be some people that can get out from the dark and become rich, but it's going to be very, very, very rare. It already seems kind of rare nowadays, but it's going to be even rarer in the future. So these are all the problems that need to be addressed, and before we start genetically modifying, we need to be able to understand what we're doing, first and foremost. We need to draw a line. Should we even draw a line between enhancement and therapy? Because we definitely should use it for therapeutical reasons. I want a world where there's no such thing as Huntington's disease, where there's a world, no such thing as cancer. A world, oh my God, it makes me so happy to say this, a world without color blindness. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? But the thing is, we don't want the enhancement to happen because, like I said before, what's going to stop the rich from staying rich and further oppressing the poor? But what about genetic modifications that are not necessarily enhancements, but necessarily allows a lifestyle to be achieved? For example, deaf parents wanting deaf children. Making that embryo to grow up to be a deaf person is going to save that embryo's life. It's going to, because otherwise they would have aborted it. Should we allow that? Yes or no? A part of me says yes, because we want to save that life if we can, right? There's no point in having it senselessly die. The parents want to have a child. It just so happens that they want it to be deaf. But at the same time, if we allow them to do it, what's going to stop other people from playing the system? And are we okay with that? Because it gives them an unfair advantage too. And isn't the whole point of not allowing people making certain genetic modifications to make sure that people are not giving themselves enhancements? Because remember, once we start doing enhancements, it becomes a slippery slope. And honestly, I hate slippery slope arguments, but this is the only slippery slope argument that I kind of believe. The argument in which that there could be speciation. And with speciation comes war, and then with war becomes slavery and oppression between those who are enhanced and those who are not enhanced. And lastly, also is the issue between the rich and the poor. The rich staying rich and the poor becoming either staying poor or even becoming even more poor. So, what should we do? We should certainly use it for therapeutical reasons. If and only if we truly understand all the drawbacks, if we understand what we're doing completely. Or at least maybe not completely, but like 99% certain of what's going on. But the thing is, you as a parent should not ever feel compelled to genetically modify your child. Because let's think about it. If I was a parent and I had extra money to invest in my child's future to basically guarantee that they're going to be more successful, have more wealth, and perhaps become even happier, why wouldn't I do that? I want a better life for my child and I have the money, so why wouldn't I do that? Because I love my child and I want my child to be happy. But I'm going to tell you right now that if you do it, you do not love your child. You really don't. Because parental love is not contingent or based on the talents of your child. You do not love your child more or less just because they're a superstar, or because they can sing, or because they know how to draw, or because they're really good at chemistry. That doesn't make that shouldn't make you love your child any more or any less. When you think about it, parental love essentially is two different types of love. It's an accepting love and a developmental love. So you accept your child for who they are. You accept them for their talents and their weaknesses, and there's nothing you could really do about it. They were at the mercy of the genetic lottery. Whatever genetics that they got essentially was not up to anybody. They just so happened to be the person they are because out of pure luck. And because of it, they have strengths and weaknesses, and we have to accept that as a parent. Because you can't change your child the same way that they can't change themselves. They just are who they are. So accept it. But there has to be a developmental love. You notice their strengths and you put them in an environment so they can strengthen their strengths even further. If they love art, put them in art classes so they can develop it even further, or put them in an art school or in a community in which that they can be able to make art and share their art with the world. But at the same time, also understand their weaknesses so that you can develop it so that they're just not as weak in it. If they're very bad in math, and put them in some tutoring. They don't have to be exceptional like Albert Einstein or anything like that, but at least help them out a little bit so that they can get the basics down, so they will not fall behind in life. And it's very important that you have a balance between the two, because this is the thing: if you have too much accepting love but not enough developmental love, you neglect your children. This is what happens. Oh, my child is the way that they are just because that they are, and there's really nothing you can do about it, so I'm gonna just leave them alone, let them live life, let them do whatever they want. You're neglecting your child, because guess what? Your child doesn't know how to live life. They didn't have the same experiences as you did. You're leaving them on their own, essentially, and they're gonna make a lot of mistakes that easily could have been avoidable in the first place, but because you accept them so much to the point where you don't even feel the need to guide them, to develop them as a person, they're going to fall behind in life. You're going to neglect them. But at the same time, if you have too much developmental love and not enough accepting love, well, that's not really love in the first place. For example, parents who are engineers and they have a child who wants to be in sociology, for example, they might get very upset. They might be like, what the heck? No, my child is a failure. We need to transform this person into what I deem to be a good child. We're going to put this child and we're going to make sure that they're going to be studying for the SAT or ACT or MCAT or the GRE since they're 14 years old. Like, they're going to put them in and make sure they're going to put them in these prep schools, and they're going to be in the room studying day in, day out to make sure that they become that doctor, that lawyer, that engineer, because you do not accept them for who they are. You don't. Because if you did accept them, at least a little bit, you wouldn't feel the need to force them to become something else or someone else. So there needs to be a balance between the two. You need to accept them for who they are, but and at the same time understand who they are and develop them so they become a better person. And that is true parental love. It's unconditional parental love. But here's the thing. Once we start genetically modifying people for enhancement reasons, like let's just say what I just said right now was not enough for you to not genetically modify. If that wasn't enough for you, maybe this will be. Once we start genetically modifying, it takes life away in the sense that it no longer is seen as a gift. It's now seen as just simply an equation, a formula to go through life. When somebody has a good attribute about themselves, it simply was from dumb luck that they have that great attribute. And because of it, it's a gift, something to cherish, something that you should hold dear to your heart and understand, I am who I am and this is what I'm good at and I love it. But once you start genetically modifying so that someone will be the next Einstein, so that someone will be great at chemistry, so that someone will be great in music, so that somebody will be a good dancer, so that someone will be great on the baseball diamond. Once you start genetically modifying to guarantee that there will be this type of kid that you want, it's no longer a gift. They just exist to exist. There's no chance, there's nothing to really be grateful for anymore. Kind of makes life more meaningless than it already is. Life should be more than just existing and being just simply constantly fighting other people to have that promotion or constantly fighting other people to be better than one another. No, it's more than that. It should be you being able to sit down and reflect on who you are as a person, understanding that you have flaws and accepting those flaws and loving those flaws, so that you can develop yourself to be a better person. I think that is where true love for life begins. Because right now, life is still seen as a gift. Still is. And that's because every great thing that we have, whether it's we have good height, or we have a pretty face, or we're really great at poetry, those are just things that just happen by chance. So we hold on to it. And those are the parts of life that really just make everything kind of seem worth it. The struggle. Understanding that you're not perfect and then struggling with yourself so that you can be a better person than you were yesterday. So essentially, this is my summary. Right now, we don't know enough to genetically modify, but soon we will be, and soon as in the next few decades. But once we start having that power, we need to be responsible. We need to be responsible because the thing is, with great power comes great responsibility. And that is true, because once we start just genetically modifying willy-nilly, we can have very disastrous consequences. Going from just simply, at the very least, not really cherishing life as much as we should, to full-on war and oppression and slavery. Like, this is crazy. But at the same time, if we're responsible, we can be able to delete entire diseases that torment people to this day. Think of people with color blindness, people. We can save them. People that have color blindness matter too. But all jokes aside, I'm very excited to see where technology will take us in the future. And I do think we should definitely use it as a tool to help people with Huntington's disease, with cystic fibrosis, with I'm probably going to mispronounce it, but I believe it's Tay-Sachs disease. All those terrible diseases, we can save them. We can have, that can be a future for us. That can be our future with genetic modification. And I think that's what we should do. But again, we need to be responsible because we cannot allow it to get so far out of hand that we have all of these social issues that are going to be that are not going to be able to be fixed. Because once someone's genetically modified, you cannot change it. That's part of their genes. And then they'll pass those genes on to the next generation until they're genetically modified. Because keep in mind, the genes you're born with, you keep for the rest of your life. So don't be scared of technology. You should embrace it. But just understand that we shouldn't be mad scientists and just willy-nilly just use science at its full power just to see what will happen. Because guess what? Last time we did that, We bombed an island and killed thousands and thousands of people with the atomic bomb. That wouldn't have ever existed if we just treated science responsibly and respectfully. And that's essentially what I'm saying now. That's what we need. We need to treat science respectfully and responsibly. And that's my video on modern eugenics. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so happy that you're here. And if you're still watching this, just know that I love you. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and make sure to share this video. I hope you have a wonderful day.